Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Last week, over 1,400 delegates from 269 rural municipalities from across Saskatchewan gathered in Saskatoon to mark a major milestone, the 120th anniversary of Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, better known as SARM. It was a convention filled with policy debates, discussions on the future of rural Saskatchewan, and keynote addresses from both Premier Scott Moe and leader of the official opposition, Carla Beck. But one topic kept surfacing again and again: trade. With ongoing disputes between Canada and the United States, as well as Canada and China, Saskatchewan's rural leaders are growing increasingly concerned. These trade battles don't just impact the national economy, they affect Saskatchewan farmers, Saskatchewan businesses, and Saskatchewan municipalities that rely on stable markets and international partnerships. To get a first-hand perspective on the convention and the key takeaways, we caught up with Bill Huber, president of the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities.
President Huber, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Before we get started, we are officially done day one of the 120th SARM convention here in Saskatoon. How's it feel to be, I guess now I can officially call you president because you are officially president of SARM. So how's it feel?
It's challenging times, though. I moved into a position as acting president in mid-August, and it's the first thing I dealt with was a pending CPKC strike with railway workers, and thank God that didn't happen. We avoided that. Days later, the grain handlers were threatening to walk off the job in the Port of Vancouver, and so that was another worry. And then we did have a postal strike that lasted for over a month, just prior to Christmas. One of the worst times in the year to have that. And we had a provincial election, so there was all that. A new cabinet, and the government was re-elected again to serve another 4-year term, and now we're waiting for a federal election. And so it's been challenging, but you know what? I like challenges. I like. It kind of keeps us going. There's an old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
So we have now officially entered the Huber era of SARM. How is that going to look in the next 2 years from your perspective? What are you hoping to hear? What are you hoping to see? And as we are gathered here on the 120th, what are you already hearing from your members as you started these informal side conversations?
Well, they're very passionate with us, and they want us to work with them. And we've got a new executive director, Laurel Felton. She's moved into the role in December. I was new in December as an acting president, and now I'm officially the president of SARM. But we've got a big responsibility, and I'm up for it. I like a challenge, and SARM's a wonderful organization. It's done a lot of good things under the leadership of former President Orb and Jay Meyer, executive director. But we're going to move forward. I got some initiatives in my mind that I want to introduce and to make things better and better for our members, not just for our office in Regina, but it's our members that count, and that's who we work for, and that's what we're here for.
We are on the cusp of the 2025 provincial budget, which is going to be tabled next Wednesday in the Legislative Assembly. From SARM's perspective, is there anything that you as president, you as Reeve, you as councillor are looking for in this budget to help address the needs with everything else that's going on in the world? I can imagine it's up in the air, but what is SARM looking for in this upcoming budget?
Well, SARM recognizes that the latest tariff announcements will have an impact on how the budget plays out on the 19th of March. However, our requests haven't changed. We still are advocating for better access to healthcare, infrastructure investments, agriculture support, and broadband access, policing resources, and a repeal of the carbon tax. Now, I know our provincial government has opposed that carbon tax, so that's not a concern with the provincial government. But I do strongly believe it will be gone.
You believe, even with the federal election, that it will be gone?
I'm hopeful.
You talk about the collaboration and working with the provincial government. I know SARM has been meeting with ministers over the last few weeks, heading up into this return of the legislative session with the budget. Do you feel like SARM is being heard by this government, by these ministers, as we head into this legislative session, that the first of the new sitting?
Yes, I really do. We've been fortunate. We've had probably meetings with 4 different ministers now, and they're new. We've got a new Minister of Agriculture. We've got a new Minister of Environment. We've got a new Minister of Government Relations, people that are new to the cabinet. And they're doing an excellent job, and as in my mind. And they're approachable. They listen to us. We're not going to have everything we ask for. That they're going to be wins, but the door is open. And they've invited us to entertain the thought of quarterly meetings. We meet on a regular basis, and if something in between comes up, we have that opportunity to contact them. Their door is always open if they have the time, and I'm sure they will. I think we've got an excellent relationship, and I look forward over the next 3 years of working with each and every one of our cabinet ministers in the government of the day. And I think we're going to move forward if we get some of these issues out of the road. And I think things will improve in the next weeks and months ahead. There will be some bright lights at the end of the tunnel. So I'm optimistic. We have to be optimistic. And hopefully things do change federally and on the world trade issues.
Let's talk about the world trade issues and the tariffs. Now, we traditionally look at our southern partners, the United States, as the big challenge over the last few weeks with Donald Trump and the tariffs. But there's a new player that's in the market right now, and that is China. And they have just imposed 100% tariff. Well, they will be imposing 100% tariff on March 20th on canola. Right. Canola is the backbone, the blood of what Saskatchewan is. How detrimental will that be to the province of Saskatchewan if it does get put into place?
Well, I don't know how to explain it, how detrimental it will be, but it could be the end of the canola industry in this province. That's how serious it is. China is our biggest exporter, our importer of seed, canola. It's canola seed. The United States takes in 90% of our oil. That's crushed here in Saskatchewan, along with the feedstuffs, the cubed feed that goes into the dairy industry in the United States. So it's going to be devastating. And I've heard comments from producers and grain companies that a lot of producers are canceling their orders on seed canola. They're going to change their acreages. I know I talked to...
But that you can't do that overnight. Like, that is a big expense that farmers will have to do if you change from canola to another crop, won't it be?
Well, it will be. And the thing with agriculture now, we're basically into every producer in this province is direct seeding or minimum tillage. And we have to plan our rotations on crops. We can't grow canola every year, and we can't grow pulses every year. Yeah. So we have to have a rotation, and a lot of producers use a four-way rotation. You'll go from cereals to canola to pulses to back to another feed grain or something, So those are things that are in the plans for years and years, and just overnight you can't change your whole seeding plans. We can pull some acres, or producers can pull acres out of canola and put it into something else, whether it's pulses or something. But canola has been, and I hope would continue to be, our Cinderella crop. It's the one that's made us the most money. It's the most expensive crop to grow because of the inputs on seed costs and chemical for weed control, and also for the seed that you purchase your own. It's a huge investment to grow canola, and it's a high risk crop too. It's vulnerable to weather, and heat can reduce your yields in a matter of a few dry days in July. So when it's blooming.
Well, it's not even the canola sector, which is a major backbone. The states are looking at the dairy industry as well, which is a big part of the Saskatchewan economy as well. How, when you're talking to your RM members, these tariffs could change the way that they operate their family farms, their farms. Is this going to be a bigger story if these tariffs do come into play? And because if we go into a federal election, let's be honest, we're not going to have a government until May.
Right.
And farmers can't wait till May to figure out what their crops are, because in your press conference, you said there's a company that has seeds waiting to be sold, but they're going to take $11 million loss.
Yeah.
This is going to be detrimental if it doesn't get solved tomorrow.
Yeah. That was peas, a boatload of peas going to China, and the hit to that company will be $11 million. And if this comes into effect, I think you said April 20th.
I think it's March 20th, like the day after the provincial budget.
Yeah, and it's really going to impact the seeded acres, and it's going to impact the profitability of our farm operations. We've struggled in the last couple of years with inflation on machinery costs and input costs. They continue to rise, whether it's fertilizer or fuel. Costs continue to go up, and our commodity prices have dropped substantially in the last 2 years. 2 years ago, or a little more, we sold canola at $20 to $25 a bushel, depending on the day. And last year, if you got 13 to 14 bucks, that was kind of the norm, and that really doesn't meet the input costs of that crop. If you can get an above average yield of 60 bushels an acre, there's a hope you can make a few dollars. But a couple bad days of weather and one hailstorm can change your whole line of defense there.
Bill, it's always a pleasure to sit down with you. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Later this week, the Saskatchewan government will be tabling Budget 2025, where Premier Scott Moe says while the trade challenges will not be specifically addressed, the Saskatchewan government will be addressing them as time goes on.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're going to hear the budget speak specifically to this, but you're going to hear the Saskatchewan government speak specifically to this. And this is a response of a policy decision by the federal government on Chinese EVs. And as I've said, Chinese EVs coming into Canada, they're tariffed at 100%. The response is, 100%, and the response is 100% tariff on canola, as well as a tariff on seafood and pork. Chinese EVs, nobody's buying them in Canada. And it's there to support the North American EV auto industry, which few can afford. But it is essentially shutting down jobs and opportunity for Saskatchewan canola crush facilities and the people that work in them, but ultimately shutting down, as you say, the opportunity for Saskatchewan agricultural producers to grow the most profitable crop that we've had access to growing and have really developed here over the last number of decades, and that's canola. And so we need to work with our federal government and push our federal government to ensure that they are engaging. And that's the first signal that has to happen is our federal minister, and we've reached out to them. They need to reach out to the Chinese government and engage on this topic and find a path forward on behalf of not only canola producers, but I've talked to my colleagues in Atlantic Canada who are going to feel the brunt of this when it comes to their seafood exports, and much of the pork exports come out of Manitoba as well. And so I would expect that we'll have at least 4 allies in Atlantic Canada and likely an ally in Manitoba as well, because they're impacted not to the degree that we are. This, make no mistake, 100% tariff on Chinese canola and meal exports, alongside the challenge that we're seeing in the United States with the on and off again tariffs on various products. It will decimate the canola industry in Saskatchewan immediately in a matter of number of weeks, not months.
Carla Beck, leader of the official opposition and leader of the Saskatchewan NDP, put it bluntly. It's time for a Team Canada approach in addressing the ongoing trade challenges between Canada and the United States and Canada and China.
Yeah, I mean, canola is an incredibly important crop in this province in terms of the revenue that it generates, an incredibly important crop for producers that has consistently paid off. It has been incredibly important. We saw threats already with the threatened tariffs to the U.S. This latest threat from China would be absolutely devastating. I don't know that there's any other word. There's agreement here. I think Saskatchewan has always been willing to do their part when it comes to a response to the tariffs. This would be a disproportionate impact on this province. It simply cannot stand. I agree with the leaders here in the room. We need to be at the table, have the ear of the federal government, and make them understand the devastating impact that these tariffs from China would have on canola producers across this province.
Also in attendance was the Federation of Canadian Municipalities President, Rebecca Bly, We sat down with President Bly to talk about what she heard from rural municipal leaders from across Saskatchewan while in attendance, and how it's important for municipalities to be at the table during these trade talks.
President Bly, thank you so much for sitting down with me. We are at the first day of the SARM convention here in Saskatoon. What brings you here, and what's the message you're bringing from FCM to the SARM delegates?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here to address the SARM delegation and conference attendees, which is an impressive number. I think 2,000 folks are here to gather for the conference over the next few days. And it was good to be here to be able to bring a clear message that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, is here to advocate for the issues that matter most to Saskatchewan, particularly around infrastructure funding at a time when we know there's so much uncertainty with the trade war that has started and stopped and restarted, and today even in some ways that have folks genuinely concerned about what the future holds and their ability to fund and support their communities. So we're here as partners in that effort to ensure that heading into a federal election, their priorities, SARM's priorities, are reflected in our advocacy and our election readiness strategy.
What are you hearing from delegates? Because I know you've had many conversations with the president of SARM, the past president of SARM, with Reeves or councillors. What are you hearing from them directly about how FCM can help them advocate their issues at the federal level?
Well, I think it's been very clear what their main priorities are. And President Huber just said in his remarks, Saskatchewan feeds the world. And I thought, wow, what a great and true and poignant framing of what's at stake here. So from agriculture to the interprovincial trade barriers, this whole idea of bringing forward trade infrastructure to make it easier to do business with one another, but particularly around recognizing that Saskatchewan specifically, being such a agriculturally driven economy, needs to know that FCM, as we do, understands what that means, particularly in their rural communities. One of the pieces that I brought forward in my comments was that 15% of the country's population lives in rural Canada, and yet they own in assets over 36% of infrastructure. So that property tax base can't afford to renew that infrastructure without federal dollars. So these are some of the issues that I'm hearing about, and these are certainly the issues that we are taking to Ottawa on behalf of all of our members, and particularly here in Saskatchewan and SARM.
One of the big things that's been on everyone's minds, and you mentioned a bit in the conversation so far, is tariffs. Tariffs. We have Donald Trump's tariffs with the United States. China is going to be imposing new tariffs on canola, which takes place on March 20th. This is a topic of grave concerns. I know FCM has been in Washington advocating with your U.S. counterparts. Why is it important for municipalities to be at the table during this trade with not only the U.S., but with China as well?
Well, and I'll take it from a good friend here at SARM who said it to me not long ago: if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Municipalities are the catalyst for prosperity in our country. Municipalities are where resiliency in our communities starts and takes place. Absolutely critical to have municipalities' voices at the table when any negotiation, and right now we're seeing this isn't a negotiation really, but any tariffs that are going to be imposed on our country and counter tariffs that will have an impact on municipalities one way or another. So our job is to ensure that our voice is at the table, and we've been very effective in doing that. We have met with the local municipal associations in the U.S., the Association of Counties, Rural Association of Rural Municipalities in the U.S., and we've had our own FCM members on the ground there 4 trips now, sending delegations down to the U.S. to ensure that everybody understands what's at stake. And we've been been really, really successful in doing that because we are seeing and hearing U.S. mayors raising their voices up, going to social media, ensuring that their senators, their members of Congress understand what they now see is at risk in their home communities in the U.S. So we recognize that tariffs are not good for either country. They're our strongest partner, trading partner. They're our longest standing ally, of course, and the envy of the world in terms of how countries can be together and work together. We are committed to both a Team Canada approach and ensuring that we weather this storm and that we restore good relationships and good partnerships with our neighbors down south. But at the foreground right now is how do we strengthen the Canadian economy for Canadians?
Two last questions. One of them is about the topic that you mentioned just recently. We are about to be thrust into a federal election here, potentially. I say that potentially, knowing that everything could change by the time we talk, but it looks, all signs are pointing that we're going to be going to an election in the next month or so. FCM has been calling for a new fiscal framework for the provinces, the territories, and the municipalities to sit down with the federal government to talk about a new fiscal framework for municipalities. How do you get that on the national stage during this upcoming federal election? Because with all the eyes focused on Trump, no one's going to be focusing on the issues that matter to Canadian municipalities, which is a new fiscal framework. So how do we ensure that we get that on the national stage?
Well, I think that, municipalities are the ones that get the first call from their residents when something goes wrong. And I'll tell you, so we should, because we are right there with them living in their communities. And yet so many of the concerns or issues raised to municipal governments are not necessarily something municipal governments can solely solve. So once again, we've got to be at the table for these bigger conversations. But what it really highlights in this particular moment in time going into a federal election is that we are weathering yet another storm that we then are reacting to, and we can do, infrastructure stimulus projects, and all of those things are important and necessary and good, but we're ignoring the elephant in the room. We need a stronger fiscal framework, a modernized fiscal framework. We are looking at setting up a national prosperity program. And what we're looking to here is the opportunity of the moment without being opportunistic. And the opportunity of the moment is to highlight to the federal government that if we can go further out and have meaningful negotiations with the provincial governments at the table and municipal governments at the table about what a share, an equitable share of revenue back to municipalities and sustainable funding would mean, so that every single one of our members and member municipalities across the country can have a better response to the aging infrastructure deficits, to being able to have more funding to be able to plan for what that renewal looks like for their communities, because nobody knows their communities better than the municipal leaders that govern them. And so this is really what we're focusing on going into the federal election. And Saskatchewan Minister Schultz just talked about new funding coming from the Saskatchewan government, right? That's a huge positive step forward. We know other premiers have talked about it as well. Premier Wapkanu from Manitoba, Atlantic premiers. So we need to get more. Momentum is working in our favor, and I think that we've just got to highlight that this is the important time. This is our moment in time to really move the needle on this piece.
One of the big issues that a lot of municipalities, my last question for you, because I know you have to go and you have to catch a plane and you have to get back to Vancouver, but one of the big issues that I'm hearing is housing infrastructure, housing challenges, and in particular when we were up in Yellowknife, housing is a massive challenge up there. Are you hoping to sit down with Scott Aitchison, the Conservative MP for Parry Sound-Muskoka, the housing critic, Cabinet Minister, I always pronounce his name wrong, Nate Erskine Smith?
Yes, he does say, just call me Minister Nate.
Okay. Liz, are you hoping to have conversations during this upcoming federal election with those counterparts to hear what they have in their platforms so municipalities are informed on how they're going to work with municipalities?
Absolutely. We work with all federal political parties to advocate for the issues that matter to municipalities and to the communities we serve. I'll say that, Scott Aitchison's been a great player for us and partner in coming to FCM board meetings and annual conference to address our members, to be able to have real and honest dialogue, which we appreciate, because that's how we're really going to figure out where do we have common interests that we are all looking to achieve. And you're right, housing is a critical issue for our country, and yet municipalities can continue to be great supporters of how to do that. And yet we need to know that we can flush a toilet. We need to know that when that housing is built, the infrastructure is in place. And so, again, a great example of where those partnerships between all levels of government will come in. So we're really happy to continue to work with all the great MPs in federal parties as we look towards the next few weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you.
We caught up with President Golden to talk about what she was hearing, why it was important for SUMA to be at the SARM convention.
Well, it's a partnership. We don't do things alone. And more we have to get anything done, to advocate, we need to do that together. And there's some things that we can advocate on and for, and there's some things we may not be able to do that, and that's what our associations will be doing individually. But there are many things that we can do together, and we want to continue to do that. We've got good relationships, and we want to continue that.
Also in attendance was the Association of Manitoba Municipalities Vice President, Scott Phillips, who spoke to me on behalf of the organization on what he heard and what he brings back to Manitoba heading into his convention later on in April.
Vice President Phillips, thank you so much for doing this. Yeah. You are here at the SARM convention in Saskatoon, representing AMM alongside Swan River and Director Mayor Lance Jacobson. What brings you here?
Well, it's a great honor to be asked to come, and it's a great honor to represent the Manitoba municipalities at it. We came because we do a lot of stuff together, like letters of support on so many things. And there's water. Just because there's a border between Saskatchewan and Manitoba, water doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So for example, so we're talking to them about water, drainage and dams and stuff like that, and also the wildlife. Like we're just talking about the elk herds today down in the Moose Mountain in southeast Saskatchewan and southwest Manitoba. Those elk don't know the boundaries. There's thousands of elk going across every day that, is doing damage to Saskatchewan producers and Manitoba producers. So we're looking at, I talked to some producers out in the hallway, and they're on board with us about doing a healthy harvest, a sustainable harvest for a couple of years for the landowners. Because the landowners are bearing all the costs. They're wrecking the silage, they're wrecking the tarps. They're not like a deer that take down a strand of fence. They're taking down a mile of fence when the herd of elk go through, and they're putting their waste on the bales, wrecking the straw and the hay and the feed, and then standing crops. They're going in there, and so it's a lot of similar things. And actually, the best part I will say about coming to another province's convention is you get time to go to the seminars and to do the trade show and to talk. And as flattering it is to be at the AMM one and to talk to all the delegates, and that is such an honor. Like I can't thank the delegates enough for voting me in. It's a true honor. But here you can talk to and a lot of the exhibitors are the same, so you can actually talk to them and ask how it's going and what's good and what would you like to see, or would you like to maybe come to our trade show, because they've got a lot of good exhibits at this one that we don't have. So it's good to interact with everybody. And
are you hearing similar issues in Manitoba as you are here in Saskatchewan, whether it be infrastructure funding, crime, crop issues?
Yeah, crime is a big one. Drugs is a big one. Staffing's a big one.
Yeah.
Where all the staff went, where all the workers went, I don't know if it was COVID or the COVID dollars or what, or I don't know where all the staff went, but there's vacancies all over. There's job postings all over. There's places that just close early because they don't have staff. And where is all the staff? Where's all the youth that aren't working?
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to do something when I was 14 or 15, I went and cut grass, or I went and pumped gas, or I did something, and you don't see that now. And I don't know where they are. I don't know where this money tree is that some people have that the kids don't have to work, but someone's got it because the kids aren't working. Like green team applications, we can't fill them. You know, we got great opportunities. When I was young, there was, even when I first got on council, there was too many people apply for Green Team. That's a great starter job. You learn so much, you got responsibility, and now they're not there, and I don't know where they are. It's puzzling, and it's such a great job, and so that's just one thing, or a few things.
Last question before I let you go. What do you bring back now? So you've been here. Do you bring back a report to your board? Do you bring back a report, or is this more just a show of solidarity with SARM members and you're here? So because people of RM have sipped in, people of municipalities might go, why would Scott Phillips or why would Mayor Jacobson go into that? So is there a report that you bring, or is it just information you bring back to the board?
No, both. I update my local delegates in my municipality, and some of them might wonder, what do you benefit from it? Well, we're benefiting because we have similar issues with crop insurance claims. We've got similar issues with drainage, and Saskatchewan water comes to us through the Assiniboine, through the Souris, and through the States, or down the Pipestone Creek. So we've got to work together with our neighborings that are sending this water, and Saskatchewan zebra mussel free. So we had a really good chat with the Environment Minister on how did you accomplish that, because Manitoba is the furthest thing from zebra mussel free. We're trying our best, so we're just picking up some
That's
pointers.
Ontario for you, though, and I can say that because I know zebra mussels.
Well, yeah, they got them too, but no, it's great. It's just a lot of solidarity too. But I send notes all day long. I'll hear something and I'll type it in and email myself so I don't forget about it. And Director Jacobson he's just on the ball with all that stuff. He'll have a lot better report than I will. But also it's to show our comedy, like for RMA and the ministers. Like, it's a small world, and those ministers work with our ministers, and we've got a lot of insight. And they've got some rural ministers here, like their ag minister. He just lives like an hour and a half straight west of me. And, it's something, because, I told him, hey, next time you're in Southwest Manitoba, look me up. Here's McCartan. We'll go for lunch someday, or I'll go that way. He's not very far. And their environment minister, excellent guy.
Travis Keesing.
I just
Trevor.
just an excellent individual. And the board, I can't say enough for the SARM board and directors and their staff. Treated us first class. They made us feel welcome. They included us in all the events and going out and stuff. And it's great to work together, because we are together. And with what's going on in the world of tariffs, we have to work more with other provinces and sharing industries and resources and stuff. I guess the tariffs did do one good thing today. There was a potential trade from Premier Canoe trading me to Premier Mo, but it fell apart due to tariffs. So my Manitoba delegates and colleagues and good friends, they're stuck with me again, because apparently the deal didn't go through due to some tariffs. So I'll have to look more into that, because I thought it was a done deal.
Vice President Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversations and gained some valuable insights into the world of the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. It helps keep us growing. And if you haven't already, head over to any social media feed and follow us at Cross Border Network. To learn more about the communities and the people we feature on this show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family members, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs. Till then, everyone.